Since I've been in the team, one of the BPIs has always been manualised, and then the other two became manualised partway through me being here. And I think having had the contrast, it's really useful to have the manuals as a framework. And I think initially I was a bit sceptical that a manual could work because it seems quite prescriptive, but actually it provides a really useful structure that you can add to and make really personal for the service user.
I would add to that as well, saying that it's developed a few times, the manual, and now we've got it down to being quite a visual thing as well. And I think that helps, with a few visual aspects to it rather than just a written form.
Yeah, and I think it's something people can go to when they're really distressed, that they've got it on paper, they don't have to remember everything or take kind of copious notes and not be really engaged in the session because they're trying to write everything down.
Found it really helpful. It was helpful to have some structure so we didn't have to go and find out extra information. It was all just there.
I think initially I was quite reserved, thinking that we were just going to be robots, just kind of reading off the same thing to everyone, but it has actually been quite helpful in it provides a standardised structure which enables you then to adapt to every individual client. So yeah, helpful.
Well, when we have the scales, which are ticked with the patients over a period of time, taking it really slowly, there's a little bit like the penny drops after or during when patients are ticking the scales, and afterwards often patients say, "This is so me," and I've never had any patient who wasn't appropriate for that and didn't acknowledge that it was them. So for me, it's like the penny drops.
I also think kind of the normalisation aspect of psychoeducation about anxiety or distress can be really helpful for people because, like Ben said, they're like, yeah, that's absolutely me. But having that explained, and I've had someone who said the fact that this is all written in a manual suggests it's not just me that feels like that, which is she found that really helpful to know that she wasn't alone. So I think that's great. And spending that time to do the kind of normalisation part, and also just having kind of formulation as a framework, and so people can understand how their problems are maintained, and that actually what they're doing in the short term makes sense, but that in the long term it has these downsides. So it's understandable they're doing these things, but that there's a way out of it, kind of exits out of it.
Personally, for me, I find the psychoeducation components of it most helpful. I think help people understand what is going on and, from a clinical perspective, what this might mean, and it helps them normalise it quite a lot. That helps us to then follow the intervention from that. So I think that's most helpful.
I think for me it's the kind of initial formulation and letting the client have, and both us and the client have an understanding of kind of what's going on. It gives very real life examples, and often it provides a lot more context rather than the notes that you've just read. It provides you with kind of a real life accurate understanding of what's going on for them at that time.
So I think supervision plays a big part in that, and like kind of bringing up issues in supervision or with other members of the team, particularly those who might know the service user, that can be helpful. And I think depending on the challenge, it can be a good opportunity to reflect with the person that actually they're having a really tough time of it at the moment, kind of an opportunity to validate those feelings. And sometimes you can be put on the spot a bit for like patients might ask you for kind of a specific answer to something, and I think being comfortable saying that you don't know, or that you'll have a think about it and come back to them, or ask for advice and come back to them, rather than try and give an answer that's not really well thought out, I think that can be really helpful, just to take the time to think about what they're asking.
I think that it's really important to attend clinical supervision for BPIs, liver BPIs, because there's other support workers who've been often through similar situations, such as patients not perhaps understanding some of the module, or
I think, yeah, like you said, the peer supervision aspect, the group supervision is really helpful as well, because we're kind of all in a similar boat.
Yeah.
It's not just like speaking to a clinical psychologist necessarily, but that's really helpful, but also having other people who are delivering the intervention is really helpful to kind of brainstorm ideas in that setting.
So I think two main challenges that I've come across so far is people not wanting to engage, or are engaging and turning up to sessions, but then within sessions are not kind of enabling you to build up that therapeutic rapport. So lots of kind of stopping or not answering, or lots of I don't knows. So we are really lucky here in that we have two kind of groups of supervision, a kind of formulation where we can talk about a client that we're having those sorts of challenges with in depth, and thinking about how the kind of team can all come together to give those strategies. We then also have a group supervision as well, which kind of is good to hear other people's experiences and how they've managed those. So yeah.
I think naturally with the sort of clients that we work with, you're going to come across all sort of hurdles all the time. And so your skills as a worker is one of the main things, so your personal skills, being quite assertive with people. Especially initially, you know, for example, if someone's quite depressed, they might be quite demotivated, so having to get them to buy into the intervention in itself. But you use that through experience over time, and also, like Leanne said, supervision is really, really helpful. Or
well, by the time a patient's been to see us, they've usually had 8 or 9 other bits of paper to fill in, so I feel a bit embarrassed by saying here's a few more. But if you can get people through it, and you know, through every question, go through them and discuss what the problem is, it can be a really useful tool.
Yeah.
And afterwards, it's really good seeing that there's been an improvement and what that improvement's been.
Yeah, I think it's quite a good way of opening up the conversation about people's difficulties. So it can be quite a good conversation starter, and like you said, coming like in the last session, kind of repeating the outcome measures, and generally people see that they've improved, and that's really rewarding. And if they haven't, you can kind of problem solve with them, maybe what's been different that meant things haven't changed as they might like, so that can be useful too. And I think just from the service perspective, it's really important to see that we're delivering an evidence-based intervention, and to have the outcome measures shows us that, so I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
As well, it's nice for us to see as members of staff that that what we do is evidence-based. I think that's really positive.
And I think it acts as a catalyst for further more evidence that we are doing the right thing. Over years I've seen it. It's quite a passion of mine, seeing patients, the penny drops and there's evidence that they are getting a little bit better.
Yeah, and like you said with the catalyst thing, maybe more resources are brought into the team because we're delivering something that's evidence-based, which can be really positive.
I quite like them because initially you get a good understanding of where the person's at. Obviously we do quite a few measures, which is a downside, but also you're able to see all different parts of their life, their well-being, how they are at work, and that helps us to then cater what we're doing to the person. And I also quite like seeing it at the end if there's good results.
I think it's always a good opener to a first session in terms of identifying how that problem is affecting that individual in terms of all of their needs. So it's kind of a good starting point to develop